Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great, as I always say, staying happy and healthy and hydrated and all that good stuff. And in this video, it's all about encounters from Europe. Now I know Europe is a massive place, but that's good because then it makes it just a little bit easier for me. But yeah, if this is something that interests you, definitely pull up a stump with me and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. I had something really strange happen to me when I was younger. It still sticks with me, even now. I was with my parents. We were in a really big stone monument. I believe it may have been the Parthenon. We're there with a group, but we are allowed to stop and look at things as we please. My parents decide to have some fun with me, and they want to play hide and seek in the building. Now, I loved hide and seek, so I thought this was going to be great. Even though I was a little older, I still go and count to 10. I start looking for a while. I can't find them. I look behind a vending machine. When I turn around, the place is now completely empty. There's not a soul there. There was over 100 people there before. I'm searching this area, looking for them. Eventually, I start crying. I still can't get over the soulless feeling of the entire thing. Like I said, there was over 100 people in this thing, and then outside, there were many, many more. And now it's like there's nobody. It's like there were no people left in the entire world. I walk out of the building. I'm thinking that I'm going to have to somehow live on my own and that I've been abandoned. As soon as I step out, my parents show up, wondering why I'm crying so bad and asking me where I was. They said that they were literally just standing behind one of the pillars, but I know I checked them all, and they said that when they looked to see where I was gone. As I look back inside, everybody's back. I look around. There's people again. The sun is bright. It's as if they've always been there. I still remember the stress of the situation. That feeling of looking around and feeling like I was the only person on Earth. I never want to relive that. I never knew my grandpa that much. He grew up in East Germany, and he passed away recently. He told me a lot of stories about life under the DDR, and most of them were steeped in spooks and happenings. I'll talk about a few, in case anyone's interested. So these will all be from his point of view, and I'll translate them the best I can into English. So this first one, my grandpa, named Otto, is 9 at the time. His parents live in Dresden. Well, they live outside of Dresden, but that's the general area. The place is not very good after the Allied bombings in World War II. They move out to the countryside a year after inheriting Otto's grandparents' farm. The place is in much better shape, very pleasant and cozy section of the hills and lowlands. There's lots of dense forestry there. So he was playing near the woods with a ball. He accidentally kicks the ball into the forest. He ends up completely losing sight of it. He's scared to go into the woods alone because, he is a kid. He goes to get his dad, or Papa, to come and get the ball. His dad seems nervous as well. He said that they both went back to the farmhouse. His dad left him there. His dad took his old hunting rifle with him, which at the time was pretty illegal for him to own, but he didn't care. So Otto sits inside with his train set, and he hears a gunshot from the woods. He runs outside to investigate, hoping his dad is okay. His dad is walking back with the ball under his arm, but no rifle, and looks very shaken. Now, Gramps wouldn't learn what his dad did in the woods until he was 19, so fast forward until then. My grandfather is sitting with his dad, talking about a beer, talking about childhood memories. He asked him about the time that he lost his ball. The dad sighs and shrugs. He says, "The witch took it." My grandfather laughs. His dad is not laughing. He's deadly serious. He felt his stomach churn with his dad's seriousness. He said, "I didn't want to leave the rifle there, but it was cursed. Any tool that draws blood from a witch becomes cursed." And suddenly, he didn't want to finish the beer anymore. Here's another one from when he was 21, and these are the words that he used. "So I was working in my parents' farm. I was toiling the fields. I was planting wheat or something. I stopped to have a drink and to cool off. I was sitting on the porch with a clear view of the tree line. I began to see the branches rustle, and I thought, what the hell is going on here? I'm staring intently as the treetops rustle like something massive was moving between them. An incredibly tall figure emerges, very built and muscular, easily at eye level with the treetops. It towered over me and was probably as tall as the house. It's wearing animal pelts, carrying 2 dead bulls like they were sacks of potatoes. It notices me, it grunts, and says something that sounds like absolute gibberish in this voice, so deep and booming that I could feel it in my bones. It walks back into the woods. The next day, my grandpa, he's the guy we inherited the farm from. He was in his 70s then, but still living with us. He forces me to leave a dead cow at the tree line. By noon, it's completely gone. We never saw anything take it, but my grandfather seemed to know exactly who it was and what it wanted. This last one I have is back when my grandpa was a teenager again. He was visiting his friend's house. His friend was a Polak. He spoke German fluently, but in a Polish accent. He would laugh at his voice and they would make fun of their differences a little bit and then start playing football in the backyard. They easily passed most of the day doing this, and it was getting pretty late. The sun was beginning to set. He goes inside and eats dinner with his friend and his family before making the walk home. On the walk home, he notices that the forest is a little different. There's a new dirt path through the woods that wasn't there before, and it looks well traveled. He knew that he was going to get yelled at for being late anyways, so he decided to explore it. It was pretty short, and it led right to this little grove that was absolutely surrounded in a dense wall of trees. The whole feeling of the area was off, very ominous. There's a shabby-looking cabin in the middle. It looks abandoned, but the lights are on. He distinctly smells a stew being cooked from the cabin. The lights quickly turn off. Just barely, he can make out this old lady emerge from the cabin holding a huge stick and a lantern. She shouts, "Hello, dearie. Do you want to join me for dinner?" He shouts back, "No thanks. I have to get going." She shouts at him and starts demanding that he come back and join her for dinner, that he come into her cabin. He starts running and eventually gets back home. His dad chews him out for being late, and he never told him about his encounter with the weird forest lady. He couldn't find the trail again after that. Just a really weird experience. Alright, so here goes. To start, I will give you a little pre-story. My family owns a small house at the sea in a small region with about 250 people, 30 minutes from a town called Sundsvall. This is a small town in Sweden. If you look this up on a map, you'll notice that there is a lot of forest at the coast, and that's where I spend most of my summers. I've done so since I was 5 years old, and the 250 is the permanent population. In the summers, there's more people that come to live in this region. Luckily for me, I met 4 people, all about 1 year older than me, and for the last 12 years, we've hung out there pretty much the entire summers, so we are all naturally very close. As we've grown older, we've gotten bored with just hanging out in the village with, the small shops and all that stuff, and we've started to explore the place. Naturally, this means that we explore the forest. 2 summers ago, one of the guys told us about a lake in the woods that his dad used to take him fishing to when he was younger. And I know to some that they may consider it improbable that there is a hidden lake in the forest that happens to have a lot of fish, but it's quite common, more common than you'd think. Anyways, naturally, we decided that we wanted to go there and check it out. It was like a 15-minute drive with a moped, so we could just go out there a lot during the summer, but we barely ever spent the night. Last summer, they had all gotten their driver's licenses, which is 18 here in Sweden, and we could go farther and bring things. So one night, we're sitting at a friend's house and we're playing Monopoly or something, which was a tradition we had, and one of the guys, Carl, says, "Hey, why don't we go sleep at the lake? We could go for a couple days and just fish, and we could bring some potatoes. We could also bring some drinks and anything else that we really need." We all thought this was a fun idea and had been thinking about doing it the previous summer, but decided that we wanted cars to bring the things and, of course, to have a faster escape than a moped in the case of an emergency. So the next day, that afternoon, we left. We had bought the things we needed and we had a big lunch. We ended up bringing more than just the essentials. We had all of our phones and a stereo, but that doesn't really matter. Also, I know this may make it less believable, but we had alcohol, even though only 2 of us were actually drunk. But I can say that I'm very sure that the alcohol had nothing to do with what happened, and I'll say soon. The first night was normal. We had potatoes, so we could stay for 4 days if we wanted to, but we decided that the first night that we were going to save all the alcohol for the second night. That way we could just have the 1 day of drinking and didn't go too overboard, The second day was normal. The night was not. Out of the 5 of us, 2 don't really drink. Their names are John and Felix. We started the music, and me and Carl, and we had a girl with us named Hannah, started to have a few. After a while, Carl and Hannah were beyond drunk, and they started making out. For me, this wasn't out of the ordinary, but for some of the others it was. John really didn't like Hannah. He found her very annoying, and him and Carl were best friends. So he was kind of mad that Carl kept this a secret from him. Now the reason why that I didn't take any offense to this is 1, because I didn't care, and number 2 is because this happened a few times over the past 3 summers, but the 2 aren't dating. I think they're even in other relationships. They just kind of like to screw around with each other when they're together. And Felix had a crush on Hannah. I guess he had it since they were kids, and it never really went away. The last and only time he had seen it, he became emotional and cried a bit to himself. He said that he wasn't feeling well and that he wanted to go home. We could all tell that he didn't like it, because, I didn't care, but that's not to say it wasn't uncomfortable. And he was going to take his car, go home to sleep, and be back in the morning. I knew he was going to go, but to try and break the tension, I tried to make jokes and say, "Oh, are you sure you have to go? Are you sure you have to?" Even though we knew he was going to, just to kind of make him feel like he was still wanted in the group. And he promised me that he was coming back the next day. He even left some of his stuff and said there was no reason to bring it with him, since, again, he's coming back the next day. He just didn't want to be around whatever was going on. But then, something weird happened. After a while, Felix came back. I can't say how long it had been, since I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to my phone, but when he came back, he was acting weird. His whole demeanor was so unlike him. Now, we kind of thought that it may have been because of the situation, but after a while, it still didn't get any better. He had this soulless look in his eyes, and even when he's sad or mad, he's so talkative. But this time, he was quiet and just stared off in the distance. He only answered questions when you spoke to him, and only did so in short answers, sometimes in ways that didn't make a whole lot of sense. It was getting pretty creepy with him staring and stuff. Not only that, but he wouldn't address the fact that he said he was going home, and then he just came back. This is just something that was really weird. The weirdest part, and the biggest red flag, was when other people would be having a conversation, and someone got up. He instantly got up as well, and wanted to know exactly where they were going, and if he could join. The weirdest one was when Hannah got up and said she needed to pee. Felix was like, "Oh, can I come too? Do you need someone to come with you?" At this point, I was feeling quite sober, and my other friend, who hadn't drank anything that night, told me that something was up. He looked at me and said, I need to call my girlfriend." And quickly Felix was up, but before he could say anything, John added if I would go with him so he could talk to me about that thing. At that point, I remember looking at Felix. His eyes were just beyond blank, but there was an anger there that I was going and that he wasn't. The conversation that we had was quick. We both agreed that something was definitely up, and he was the only one in the group that believed in anything paranormal like me. So, we did come to the conclusion that there is the off chance that he's just acting really weird, but it didn't feel like it. We agreed to make the others go home with us, and we went back to camp. Carl and Hannah were looking pretty tired, so it was quite easy to convince the two of them that we should go home for the night. Initially, we had 2 cars, one belonging to Felix and one to John. As we were going back, the group of us noticed that there was only 1 car there, that Felix had already left. We turned around and asked the guy who looked like Felix where his car was, and the explanation was that he just parked it somewhere else. We told him that he would have to go alone, and he was very angry with this decision, but we didn't really care. He also didn't want us to leave, so we said, "You can go get your car, you can stay, you can do whatever you want. We don't care." Felix stormed off into the woods. We parted ways. The next day, after almost no sleep and having John spend the night in my house, we went together to Felix's house, which is actually just 50 meters away from mine. His car was in the driveway. I remember him eating breakfast, sitting on his laptop. When we came close, he came out and said, "What the hell is your problem?" Very angrily. I was shocked and asked him what the hell he was talking about. He then filled me in on his night, how I had come after him on his way back to his car and asked if I wanted to go for a walk with me. He accepted. We walked for a while on a really long, meandering trail. Then I apparently told him that I had to go pee, and then I was gone. He was surprised at this, but just thought that I was being an ass, and it just cemented the fact that he wanted to go home more. And then on his way back down the trail, he said that I jumped him, and that I took his jacket and ran off into the woods. He was really angry about this, but at this point, he just wanted to go home. He was done with any games. And this was a whole 2 hours before we left. John said something like, "Alright, good one. He was with me the whole time. You really scared us, but if we made you angry at something, we're sorry." Felix looked surprised. I told him what he meant. How he came back, acted super weird, asked Hannah if he could go with her while she takes a pee, and just having like a soulless look on his face all night. The face he made it clear that it was not him who played a prank on us. After that, we sat down and we laid out all the details. We talked for over an hour, just so everybody was on the same page and nobody was messing around. This isn't a story that we really tell people because a lot of people don't believe in the supernatural around here. And if you don't believe it, well, it doesn't really matter to me. But yeah, that's what happened. So, what did you think of those? Let me know which one was your favorite one down in the comments. Do you have one of your own? I have an email in the description below that you can send them to if you want to, and I'll try to get back to you. Also down in the description is a PayPal and a Patreon if you would like to support the channel that way, but no pressure though. And with that, I think that I will see you in the next one. The next one is also going to be about Europe, because I found a bunch of stuff, so I hope you enjoy the stories from Europe or from specific places, because, you know, it's cool if you do, I guess. I completely lost my train of thought as I was saying that sentence. So, I'll stop rambling now, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for pulling up a stump. Thank you for watching.